Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the re-sculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
Welcome to today's podcast brought to you by U.S. Bank. Imagine a world where your moneymaker is your hobby. Well, you won't have to. U.S. Bank takes pride in being the extra push people need to turn their dream job into reality. With friendly advice, setting realistic goals, and being there, supporting them with every step in their journey, just like a friend or partner would. It's time to turn your side gig into something bigger. U.S. Bank. We'll get there together. Now let's tune into today's episode.
Hey, and welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast, an adulting advice podcast production. I'm Danny Sheriff, and this is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. Let's dive in. And quick disclaimer, guys, I am not a doctor, and this content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice. Always seek the advice of your physician. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. I am here with Ali.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Where are you based?
So for the last almost 2 years, I've actually been based in Paris, though I would most identify myself with being a Kiwi, though I'm not 100% Kiwi, but I'm most Kiwi.
Not 100%? What's your other half?
Well, I was actually born in France, but I grew up in both the UK and in New Zealand, and still refused to take my passport. So technically,
that's nice.
French.
Yeah. Do you speak French?
That's a good question, but we're getting there. No, I do. I can speak French. It's just whenever someone asks me that question, I guess my perfectionist side kicks in, and I'm like, it's not perfect. So,
well, speaking of perfectionistic tendencies, I want you to just tell us from day one. Feel free to go down any tangents you want, because the thing with HA is that all these different women have these different experiences around it. Like, some have traumatic experiences around diagnoses and talking to doctors, and some just around having to eat more or exercise less. And I love when different women tell their stories and kind of go down the rabbit holes that were most important or impactful for them, because there's someone else listening who's finally someone who's speaking to me about the thing that is the most challenging for me. And yeah, just go for it.
Go for it. Well, I mean, first of all, I think that this podcast is a really great thing, because HA is something that ironically is so unknown for something which is actually so common and affects so many people. And I don't think people realize that so many other people are going through it, and there are so many different reasons why people, I don't know, for a better word, suffer from it. And if you say Google it, you kind of are like, well, maybe that's not how that's not my story. And but there's still lots that is unknown, especially by the medical community and the doctors. And I'll tell you a little bit about my experience at the doctor myself. But starting this is really great, and obviously your idea was to have lots of different stories, and so I'm really happy to share mine and provide part of the resource that you are creating, which I think is just fantastic. So I just wanted to start by saying that. So in looking back on my own story and journey, I realized that there are definitely a lot of things that led to me losing my period and also being able to get it back again. And I am actually a fitness instructor. I teach Pilates and bar and dance fitness. So in a way that does put me into a sort of known category of maybe not an athlete as such, but someone who does a lot of exercise. And I did end up also experiencing an eating disorder. So that also puts me again into a sort of known category for losing your period. But along the way, I found a lot of things that didn't really sit with me, or that I didn't think that people really quite understood. And especially in the recovery part of my journey, I found finding information really, really difficult. So when I moved to Paris, I had a bit of a turbulent start, and that's a story from another time. but after being here for about 6 months, I sort of hit a bit of a wall, where I was in this place in my head where I just wasn't satisfied, and I got myself into a little bit of a dark place, and everything was a bit out of control. And as we know, especially perfectionists, when you can't control something, you end up exercising extra control over other things. And so for me, subconsciously, I guess I should say, I began really controlling what I was eating, because I guess I felt it was the only thing that I had control over. I didn't really know if I wanted to stay in Paris. I didn't really know if I wanted to keep doing my job. I didn't know so many things, and I felt very lonely as well. I had made friends, but you're still very far away from your community, your family, and your friends from a long time, and I felt very isolated, I guess is the right word. So I did begin to lose quite a bit of weight, and I had all of these food rules that I had created for myself, which actually, when I look back on this journey, I realized started years and years before, like way before. And this is something that I only really realized a few months ago, that actually, I guess, working in the health and wellness industry, and even before that, when I had some sort of food struggles, when I wanted to give up sugar, for example, when I was 23. And so, I followed some sort of diet plan where to give up sugar, you needed to give up fruit, and you needed to give up carbohydrates, and all of these things. And I definitely have gone on a food journey since my early 20s. And I think that last year, when I was experiencing this eating disorder, it was really a result of years of disordered eating as well, that I just took to this new extreme level, which also meant restricting portion sizes and the calories and everything. And it was interesting though for me, because the foods that were on my okay list were foods that were actually very calorie dense. For example, everybody knows that I love to eat peanut butter, and I also love to eat really dark chocolate. And both of these things are really, really high in calories. So, it wasn't like I was just eating lettuce leaves or anything. And so people thought, because I was always eating peanut butter and dark chocolate, that I must be okay. But actually, my body didn't want to just survive on peanut butter and dark chocolate. And I restricted so many other things in order to be able to eat these things. And I, for me, I couldn't eat a banana because that had sugar in it, but I could eat 3 tablespoons of peanut butter. And it's just that was just a rule that I created in my head. And so that's just one example. So anyway, so I was beginning to lose weight quite fast. And after a few months of this, my period disappeared. And I think I must have told my mum about it on a phone call, and she was like, this isn't good. And also people were starting to notice in photos I posted on Facebook or on Instagram that I was looking quite a bit smaller than when they'd last seen me in New Zealand. And so I was getting a mixture of comments. I was getting some comments which were, wow, you look amazing, because I was also doing a lot of filming Pilates videos and things, so people could see my body and stuff. Look at you, look at your abs, look at all this stuff. So for my ego, that was fantastic. That was great. And yeah, everyone was like, you look amazing. So I like that. But then I also got from other people, like my mother, how much do you weigh at the moment? And have you been to the doctor yet about your period and all that sort of stuff? So
I love this point, and I almost just want to like linger on it for a bit because I know a lot of people will resonate with this one. Yeah, there are people who are praising you, and that is typically the majority, right?
it is.
It's
That's right.
only some people who are like woke or clued in, or your parents, that can see this change. But the world that we live in right now, not only do we lean closer to the people that are praising us for this, but we actually think the people that are worrying about us are being ridiculous at the beginning.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know about you, but the first few people who were like, "Oh, don't get much smaller," and stuff like that, in my head I was like, "Do you even know what health means?" like, like, and it's just this bizarre brainwashing that we're kind of gone through. And so I just wanted to like sit on that because I think it validates a lot of people's experiences. So thank you for sharing that bit. But
Yeah, it is so interesting, isn't it? And especially with the industry that I work in, you see the hashtag Fitspo people as being super lean and super toned and everything like that. And so I had been by that stage an instructor for 4 years, and I've tried to be really honest with myself about this as well, about how I felt working in the industry. Not being as small as I was, say, last year when I was super lean with the abs and everything. And I don't think I in New Zealand felt that I had to lose weight to be in the industry or anything, but I definitely felt this like sense of validation having had lost the weight, and suddenly it was like, oh wow, look what, and yeah, so that was interesting. But I also, when you're in that headspace, you don't really realize how much you are influenced by what's going on around you, whether or not it is the people who are saying, wow, amazing, but also you look at, social media and everything. And as much as I like to say, oh no, I don't compare to myself to other people, I think when you are in the industry and when you are also in quite a vulnerable mindset, which I was at the time, because I was in really not a great place, I think just even on a subconscious level, I would have been influenced by, other people and other people who are doing my job and my colleagues and everything like that. I think it's just, that's just natural. It's just human. So I was very reluctant to go to the doctor. I'm not going to lie. I just didn't really want to go, but I was like, right, I'll go because, Mum was going to keep asking me if I've been and everything. So I went, and okay, just remember for a second that I'm in France. So I
yeah.
I went to the doctor, and here they've got a great medical system here. But the doctor I went to, she is French, and so we did our consultation in a mixture of French and in English, and I told her, I have lost weight, and I've lost my period, and I also am an exercise instructor, blah blah blah. So 4 times in this consultation, she asked me whether or not I had a boyfriend, and which I did not. So therefore, losing my period because I possibly could be pregnant was 100% not an option. Yet she asked me 4 times if there was a man. And I was like, no, there really is not. I really don't even need to do a pregnancy test. Like, it would be some miracle.
I've had that too. I was like, I'm telling you, I'm not pregnant. She's like, I'm still just going to take the test. I'm like, what do you think is going on here? Why would I be lying about this?
I know. So it's only me who's gonna be have to deal with that later if I'm lying to you. So anyway, I had to kind of laugh at that. And the thing is at the time I did actually know what I was doing to myself in terms of the restrictive eating and everything. But I definitely wasn't in a place that I was going to come and tell the doctor about it. And in France, they do have a reputation of being like, okay, you've heard the doctor, you obviously want some drugs, here's a prescription, off you go and sort yourself out. So this wasn't obviously something that required me to like have antibiotics, but she said, well, you need to eat more. And that was kind of that. So I was like, okay, cool, great, sweet, I'll do that. Went away, did not do that. In fact, did the opposite to that. And continued to kind of get myself into a very dark place. I actually ended up going on a 10-day hike. I did the Tour du Mont Blanc, which is a very well-known hike around the Alps, which was absolutely amazing. And I look back on this time now and was like, how did I survive doing that hike when it was
pure adrenaline.
eating a lot of peanut butter, but not but still not really carbohydrates. And the thing was, I couldn't sleep properly because and one of the symptoms of having HA is that you have insomnia and your body also wakes up starving. And I also was addicted to exercise. So as well as the fact that I was doing a very intense hike, I would get up at 5 a.m. every morning while everyone else was asleep and go for an extra walk before breakfast. And
Before hiking, you would pre-hike.
I needed to go for the extra one as well, just because it wasn't enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there was definitely a lot going on there, and that's there's a lot going on. There was a lot going on there, and I got through the hike, and by the end of it had lost some more weight and continued to I'd say lose. Well, I did lose more weight over the next few months. Anyway, I went back to the doctor, and I said, she weighed me again, and she was like, "You've lost more weight." And I, in my head, was secretly pleased with this because I saw that as success. Mm-hmm. And she got quite angry at me actually, and was like, "Why are you less?" And I was like, "I don't know." She decided that she would do is it called the progesterone test? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, progesterone challenge. You take some pill. Yeah.
Yeah, you take a pill to give yourself like a fake bleed. So
for like 10 days.
Yeah, so they can do a blood test. So she was telling me how I needed to do this. But I was about to go on some holiday, and in France in August, like everything like shuts down. So I was like, look, I'll just wait till the end of my holiday and then I'll do it. And I was also going on holiday with my parents. I was meeting my parents for a holiday, and anyway, we'll skip forward to the end of the holiday. So during the holiday, my parents got to see the disordered eating in real life, which I know would really, really scared my mum, and we had a few conversations, because I know she also knew that I didn't really want to talk about it. And we did have a conversation where I said, "Oh no, I really like being this skinny and everything." And she said that afterwards, she said to me that really, really scared her, because she could see what I was doing and the control that was going on, that I could only eat at this certain time, I could only have these foods, and all of this sort of stuff. Anyway, I came back to Paris, and I did the test, but unfortunately it didn't work. So I had to go back to the doctor again. I was really happy about that. And she was like, "Look, we're going to give it one more try. It may just be because your weight has dropped more that it's happened, but can we just give it one more go?" So I said, okay. And it was actually around this time that I woke up to what I had really been doing to myself. And I realized that actually, simple things like people cared about me and people loved me, and I had a good life, and I didn't have it all figured out, of course. No one ever does. But I woke up to this from this place that I'd been in. And so I mentioned before about when I was doing this Mont Blanc hike that I used to get up really early to walk. And this is what I was doing in my daily life as well. I'd be getting up super early every morning, and it meant that I would leave all my social events early, and I didn't really do much else in my life other than do my exercise that I told myself I had to do, because I had to have like this meal at this time, and then I had to have done enough exercise in order to deserve the next meal, and then I had to do enough to then,
A lot of people are nodding along right now.
Yeah, so it's earning the food. So it really meant that my life was walking a lot and was teaching my classes, and then literally having to lie in my bed during the day to recover, because I didn't have any energy to even really walk up the stairs. I still don't know sometimes how I managed to teach some of my classes. So I was at a social event, and it was getting, kind of late, and the usual behavior in my head was kind of going, oh, it's getting late. You should be leaving now because you're going to get up at 5 a.m. and go for your walk. And then I suddenly said to myself, no, you don't need to do that. Don't do that. And I didn't. And this was the start of the recovery process, which was not like easy, but it began. And so anyway, I got the blood test done this again, and it worked, and they did the bloods and everything, and they saw there was nothing else wrong, which then just meant my doctor just really had nothing to say to me other than just eat more. So she still was just on her, just eat more. There's nothing else wrong. Just if you just eat more, you'll be fine. Maybe don't walk so much. Like really helpful advice. Like imagine if it was just that simple. Just eat more and do less exercise. I mean,
we've said a couple of times on the show now, like, I guess in a way, HA recovery itself is kind of simple in the sense of like eating more and resting more, but that's actually like where the simpleness ends. And from there, it becomes this complicated thing of emotions, mental conditioning, habits, fear everywhere. And it's like kind of a mental health issue.
It is. It totally is. It totally is. And I guess this is, my particular experience with seeing my doctor here is unfortunately, in general, of course there are exceptions, but in general is reflective of the medical education in this country. I do believe if I'd gone to see my GP in New Zealand, I would have had a slightly different experience and probably would have been referred to someone else. But anyway, I was here and this happened. So I started talking quite openly about what I've been doing. And it was really interesting because when I kind of came out, if you like, about what I've been doing to my body and the fact that I'd lost my period and blah, 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 I had all these messages from people being like, oh, we knew this was happening. And we were so worried and all of this stuff from New Zealand and the UK and everything. And I was like, why did no one ask me how I was? I didn't really like. I know obviously bringing up someone's weight is a that's a difficult thing to do. But none of these people who were so worried ever reached out to me and said, hey, how are you going? And that's what you're saying before about it being a mental condition, is that even though I can put my food rules that I created for myself down to disordered eating and all this sort of influence from that, the reason that eating disorder really kind of took off was because I was mentally in a bad space. And so I found that really just a very interesting, time. And I had some very interesting conversations with concerned friends who rang up and told me why I'd lost my period, or told me why
so you had at this point been public about the fact that you had lost your period, and then they called you? Okay.
So yeah, then they wanted to help. Okay, so I said, okay, well, all I'd actually love is just to have a chat on the phone. Just that's all I'd really like to do. And so I had some conversations with some people, and it was just really interesting with people telling you why you are the way you are. So one of the things I got was, oh, well, you've become really skinny, obviously because you live in Paris and everyone in Paris is skinny. And I had a lot of these sorts of things said to me, and I found that really difficult because I was actually kind of saying the reasons why I believe I got there. It was a really interesting time because it really reflected that people didn't really understand what I was going through, and the whole losing the period thing, and I guess the combination of the eating and the fact that my job worked directly against me, because I was in a job where everyone was staring at my body, and I knew that, and I was surrounded by mirrors as well. And so in order to put on weight every day, I was just looking in the mirror at myself and looking at other people look at me. And I had some girls who would come up to me at work and say, "We think you've got the perfect body. Tell us exactly what you eat. Tell us what your exercise routine. Do you work out separately?" Like all of these things. And I found them really triggering because I knew that my body was not working properly. And even now when I look at social media and I see again these like hashtag Fitspo people, and I look at them and I look at maybe how lean they are.
You wonder what's happening under the hood.
I do. I really do. And the thing is that not everyone has to share like intimate details. And I have been very open about the experience because I felt with my job, I just felt, for me, I felt like I had an obligation to. I wanted to share that, yes, this is what I do for work, and I am, an exercise instructor, but actually, if you, like anything, if you go to the extreme in either direction, you end up with problems. And so this is one of the reasons why I decided to share the story, was because I found people just coming up to me thinking that I was, just because I looked really great, it meant that I felt really great when I was really falling apart.
This is just so like the problem.
Yeah.
That we're so vocal about what's, quote unquote healthy and perfect and fit, and that's actually very disordered, and we're so quiet about the opposite side of things. So it's very hard for anyone to know that, like, they only see one path, and it's just perpetuated over and over again. And that's so much why you obviously shared your story in the position you're in, why we're trying to have this podcast. And it also kind of brings back to this point of people feeling uncomfortable to say anything to you because it's a bit taboo. You wouldn't, it is rude to comment on someone's weight, right? And I've found by just sharing my story from my perspective, and it sounds like you sharing your story from your perspective, you're not directly saying to someone else, "Hey, you have a problem," but you get to say, "Hey, this is the thing that happened to me. If you see yourself in my story, you know where to find me." And that's just what I like. It feels very full circle with the story you're telling. And yeah, it's just nuts.
Totally. And the thing is that I really, yeah, like you were saying, once you open that conversation.
When it comes to self-care, ginger can be used in more than just your diet. Try Ginger with 2 J's, a new all-natural ginger essential oil designed to help rejuvenate your mind and body. Ginger's special extraction process results in a higher purity ginger oil, and it comes pre-mixed with carrier oils, so it's always ready to use. Plus, the convenient dropper cap ensures you get the perfect amount every time. Get 20% off your first purchase today at jinjer.us/podcast. That's ginger.us/podcast.
Here's to getting back together, to planned lunches and unplanned cookouts, to grandma's recipes and smells that take us back, to passing down plates and traditions. Here's to warm embraces and familiar faces, to your best friends becoming best friends, to scheming, dreaming, and food still steaming. Here's to laughter and love, to growing closer than ever. For all of life's get-togethers, Chinette, here's to us.
And someone, yes, sees themselves, a bit of themselves in your story. It's amazing how suddenly people start talking to you about these things. And suddenly all these people were telling me that they'd had a time where they lost their period because they were maybe
they're all coming out of the woodwork.
They're all there now. I was like, oh goodness. So maybe they did fit the even the like athletes tried, if you want to say that, like there are dancers, runners, everything like that, not eating enough calories, over exercising, and then having that added stress on the body. I mean, for me, I guess I did have those things as well. I was in a mental place of stress. I was not fueling myself enough, and I was definitely over exercising. But even putting myself in that sort of stereotype, if you like, I just still found there was so much that there sort of was this lack of information, and especially from, like, I found like I could get more information out of like looking at the hashtag on Instagram from girls who actually had this than from a medical professional anywhere near me. And that's why, again, I think what you've done setting this up is great, because you get to hear stories and you actually do get to learn. And then I did also discover Dr. Nicola Rinaldi and the No Period Now What book and everything like that. And I looked at her work as well, and something was like, oh wow, like one person has seemed to like actually compiled a whole lot of really good information here and talked about the whole health at every size, and you don't need to like, because for me, even though I had lost a lot of weight and my BMI was below par and everything, I still didn't look like someone who was about to be admitted to hospital. You know, and like I say this, like, having also spoken to people who were with me and saw me. Yes, I did look a lot skinnier than I did before, but I wasn't. I think even like just tell someone you've had an eating disorder. I think I've talked to people about this around me quite a bit. Like at school, I felt like I learned what like anorexia was, for example. This was when you wanted to be super skinny, and then you basically are skin and bone, and you're about to go to the hospital, and that's what anorexia is. You didn't learn.
It's very clear.
Yeah,
and tangible.
Definitely. But actually, yes, that is what it looks like, but it also looks like loads and loads of other things as well. And eating disorder behaviors like binge eating, for example, which I also went through a period of as well. Like you can be any size to do that. And eating disorders also mean putting on weight. And actually, I often say to people, if you know anyone who's either lost or gained a noticeable amount of weight in quite a short period of time, there is something going on for them, something else going on for them, which is not the food. But again, I just don't think we just don't have that. We're just not given that education, I don't think, growing up. And so anyway, I continue to share parts of my story, and so I want to say that my recovery has come in two parts. So part one was, I took a deep breath and was like, okay, I'm going to try and go all in. I was going to try and just consume lots of calories, and I was doing quite a bit of traveling at the time, which meant that I was going to places and I wasn't just like controlling every single meal. I wasn't having like everything that I was having before. And I mean, it worked. I did eat more. I suddenly was really hungry, funnily enough. It was like, I turned back on my hunger signals, and they were like, hello, we've been waiting for this.
Did you experience this? I found myself, as soon as I started increasing calories, like straight away, I would wake up at 5 a.m.
Yes.
and need breakfast right away.
Yes.
It's wild. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'd often need to do that in the middle of the night as well, get up and have a snack. And then, as soon as I woke up, I was starving hungry. I mean, I always have been an early morning breakfast person, but this was like, if I do not eat right now.
It's different. Yeah.
It's like, it's urgent. It has to happen right now. So, but also I was definitely underfueling before I went to bed, because it was like, well, I'm going to bed now. I can't possibly eat a big meal because I'm going to bed, and I can't work it off in bed. I can't walk in bed. Like, so, there was, so suddenly it was like, oh my goodness, I was getting up a lot to eat more. And I'd often lie in bed before I went to sleep actually, and was like, are you hungry? Are you hungry? Do you need to have another snack before you go to bed? Listen to yourself. So it took a few months for me to get it to come back. And so this is the interesting part, I think, now for me, is that when my period came back, I wasn't happy that it came back. It was like when I first went to the doctor, because my mum wanted me to go to the doctor because I'd lost my period. When it came back, I kind of felt like I'd done it for everybody else and not for myself. I felt like everyone else was really happy that I had got my period back when I told them. and I wasn't, because I still did not want to I didn't want to put on weight. And to me, what it signaled was that I had now put on weight, is what it meant to me. And I was unhappy about that, because my mindset still hadn't really changed enough. So I spent the next few months still kind of going along with this this whole thing of, having a period. And I got to, so it was all reasonably recent. I got to sort of the beginning of this year, I want to say sort of February time, where I suddenly kind of fell off the bandwagon again, and was like, I need to bring in some control. I really can't deal with this. I can't deal with this not really knowing if my body's only going to put on 5 billion kilograms, and I'm all over the show, because actually, even though
I'll figure out a different way. I'll figure out a different way.
I know that's such a common thing. I know. I was like, no, there's another way to do this. There's another way to do this. And I had broken some of my food rules, but I hadn't also broken a lot of them, and instead I was kind of just consuming more of the foods I was already eating. So we're going for a lot of peanut butter still, there was still a lot of peanut butter going down, just more of the same. And so when I brought back in some of my old, I call them my old meals, the meals that were like part of this is the only stuff I'm eating, and starting restricting again. And I especially restricted carbohydrates in order to allow myself to have the peanut butter and the dark chocolate. And the thing is, my body, especially because I am an active person, it needed the carbohydrates, and probably not so much peanut butter and dark chocolate. My body didn't want to run on that. It wanted to run on carbs. But yeah, I mean, how I created that rule, I could go into a separate story altogether as to how that comes on. But I don't think I even probably need to, for lots of people who have experimented with sort of fad dieting, or what we think should be restricting and eating.
There are people on the other side who are afraid of fat and are only eating carbs because fat is more calories per gram, and it's all over the place. Whatever your rules are, they all come down to the same thing, where you had this fat experience, and now you have hang-ups and beliefs around certain food groups or behaviors around food.
Yes, it's very true. It all comes from somewhere. So then the world then went crazy because COVID came along, and I actually ended up I had planned to go to New Zealand for 2 months in the beginning of April for a whole lot of things. And because this was all going crazy, I decided to basically get an emergency flight and go about 3 weeks earlier than I'd planned, because France was locking down, and I was worried I wasn't going to be able to go, and I just don't know what's
New Zealand
happen, but I just feel like I need.
New Zealand is like the best place to be at this time.
Yeah, that again is like a whole nother story, because the reasons I went kind of became void, and then New Zealand did go into lockdown as soon as I arrived, basically. Right. So it was a bit strange, but with that sort of stress, plus I was back to doing some of my old things. My body then went into, okay, then no period again, goodbye. So it went away again. And while I was so I actually ended up being in New Zealand for almost 3 months, just because I left earlier, and I only came back 3 days after I'd planned, because the flights all got changed, because, crazy life. So during the time I was in New Zealand, for everyone, this has been a very interesting time. And I think actually, for people who have had an eating disorder or anything like this, or some sort of controlling behavior, I think for a lot of people, they've noticed that that behavior has just sort of been amplified, because you can't control what's going on in the world right now. So again, you control the things that you can control. So when I was in New Zealand, I had a few attempts at having a period, but then my body was like, no, actually no, we're not really going to give you that. And so I came back to France, and where are we now? Like 2 months ago, And my body, I'd lost some weight again, and no period, and I was in a really bad mindset. And I can't really tell you what exactly changed for me, but something changed, and I decided that I was going to do this experiment with myself where I was going to go back to eating how I ate. I say as a child, I don't mean like as a baby, but before any sort of food dialogue ever.
The carefree days.
Yeah, exactly. And as a child, I grew up eating really great meals. Like my mum did home cooked meals nearly every night, but we also ate a lot of pasta because my brother was a very fussy eater. A lot of pasta and cheese. Two foods that were on the list of things I could not have in my head. And I had actually a really high carbohydrate diet, but also with all the other things needed in the diet. So I was like, I'm going to experiment with this and just see what happens. And my body has thrived on it. It's like, this is what we've been needing. And I suddenly had this new sort of energy, I don't know, leash of life came along, and I felt like I could go to teach my classes, and I felt really good. I felt like I was fueling myself with what I needed to fuel my body with. I suddenly realized that no, if I ate this cookie or had this banana, the world wasn't going to fall over. And I just managed to break through a whole lot of those rules, and I started wanting my period to come back, which was different to the first time when I was anti it coming back. I just wanted it to just not come back. And so I can happily say that it has come back again. And I'm still, as you know, like this is all this stuff to do with our body and everything. It's a journey. Like I'm not like, oh, now it's come, therefore I'm set for life. But I'm in a place where I feel like the need to control has disappeared, and I can trust my body again, which is something that I didn't do before. I had to control it because there was no trust. And now I'm actually like, oh, actually, it does know what it wants. And I'm still learning every day, like which, I mean, we all have those days, right, where we eat something and it's like, oh, shouldn't have had that, or oh, I knew that would have happened if I had that, and I know that actually makes me feel sick if I eat that. So there are also those things, I think, when you're learning how to eat again, almost, that you also do need to give yourself a break and realize that actually the average person does not have a perfect diet, and that there are foods that are going to make you feel not so good some days, and some days where, you make mistakes, if you like, with what you eat. I mean, they're not mistakes, but you know what I mean? They feel like mistakes, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And it's almost like you've got to sit in that discomfort at being like, yeah, okay, so that wasn't the best, but don't worry, there is tomorrow, or there is the next meal, and it's fine, it's okay. And I think for me, telling my body that it's okay, and also providing it with the fuel that it wanted, gave it the opportunity to feel like it was in a safe place again. Because also I think that some people don't know that HA happens because your body is like, wow, we're not safe. We're in survival mode, if you like. We need to shut down the most unnecessary, or like the most like unessential.
Yeah, it's like not immediately necessary.
Yes,
like,
system right now to like run away from our danger that we're in, which is the reproductive system. I don't need that to run away from my caveman danger. It's not a good time to bring a child into the world right now, apparently. So I think reteaching my body that it was safe, that, no, not everything's not perfect, but I was, giving it actually what it wanted, and listening to it and connecting to it. And I shared with some people some exercises that I've done, and that even as simple as breathing is becoming really just in tune with your body by by learning how to breathe properly. And for me, even doing Pilates, but not doing sort of, let's kind of, do a workout Pilates, but like, let's do something where I feel really 100% connected with my body and can feel it working. And I take these moments of stillness as well, which also I never used to like doing. I never liked being still. where I try and do even something like drink. I'm quite famous for having they're called chocolat chauds, which is the French word for hot chocolate here. So I take a chocolat chaud and I drink it really slowly, and I feel how it kind of goes through my body. And I use this as an activity to listen to my body as well and be like, what do we need now? And I tried to take that practice and almost take it to my meals as well, and sit there and be like, okay, we finished the bowl. Do we need to eat more, or do we need to have dessert? Are we actually done?
Yeah.
And so it's been trying to get that dialogue going, and that for me has really helped. It's made me listen, and it's made me trust that voice again,
Nice.
my body, which I'd suppressed for so long. So
I love that. It's like you've spent so long just putting up these rules and telling your brain, well, you ate this much, so you must feel full now, or you can't eat more, blah, 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 to, well, if I really try and listen to you, what are you saying that you want, body? And yeah, we spend a lot of time and energy and building strategies to stop ourselves from eating food. So just the concept of coming back to that is so life-changing for so many people. And a huge theme that I'm hearing from your story here is like, it doesn't happen overnight, and it's okay. Like your HA didn't happen overnight, right?
no.
So your recovery doesn't happen overnight. You, by the sounds of your whole story, slowly implement, like first you found out about this concept and you were open to hearing about this concept and learning about it, and you probably consumed content about it over time. As like you said, you found people going through it themselves online, and that almost, just like diet culture and the media have subconsciously put into our minds what we should believe is health and fitness, you were also able to subconsciously bring in these other messages, like maybe there's another way, and maybe you do want to fix this. And eventually it was the truth for you, and it was what you wanted to do. And it feels like it just happened, but you slowly worked at it, and you were so patient with yourself, and you realized you weren't doing quote unquote recovery very well. Yes. but you didn't give up. And so many women are just struggling so much right now because they feel like they need to go ham with recovery and they need to fix it right now, and if they don't, they're failing. But it's just not true.
Yeah.
Tell me about your hot chocolate club.
So when I started sharing publicly about the kind of under eating, over exercising, and the loss of my period and everything, part of the problem I'd realized was that how I got into a dark place, I call it my dark place in the first place, was because I felt I lacked community. And when I suddenly realized that I had this community, this is when I said to myself, oh, you don't need to leave this event early and get up tomorrow morning and go for this isolated walk. And so I thought, when I came out and people started talking to me and sharing some of their stories and everything, and oh my goodness, it's so nice to know someone else goes through this, I thought, well, why don't I make it up my own community where we meet and we talk about these things? And so I created this thing we called it Rendezvous Chocolat Chaud, which basically means hot chocolate appointment or hot chocolate meeting. And
so pretty.
And because of my job, I had like all my clients and people who come to my classes, they follow me on social media. And so I started talking about this. And so people started coming along, and I tried to do it every month. And I'd come up with some sort of theme that was related somehow to either something to do with, it started off by just being, let's talk about, body stuff. But then I realized, all this stuff is all related to everything to do with physical and mental health. So I picked sort of themes to talk about, and people were really great. Like, there'd always be quite small groups, which was perfect, because then people actually would open up and share, or they didn't need to share, they could just listen to other people, or me lead a conversation or something like that. And then I'd also make them a chocolat chaud, a hot chocolate. So that was cool, and because also I chose that drink. Well, I chose that drink because I love hot chocolates and I don't drink coffee. And so whenever people want to meet for a coffee, I'm like, you mean hot chocolate? And also because there's, again, this stigma around a hot chocolate because it is a naughty drink. And so I felt, well, we're going to meet and talk about this with this naughty drink.
I love it. I love it.
So that's where that came from. And then I would often do on my Instagram, like, my own little rendezvous chocolat chaud, where I just would use it as like a thing to bring up just stuff to do with, like, real talk, if you like, to do with body image or to do with whatever, and just talk and be like, this is our rendezvous chocolat chaud. These are my, some people do like morning thoughts on Instagram or something.
Yeah.
Those
I
things.
love this.
I thought, well, my version was rendezvous chocolat chaud, where I'd show myself how having my own hot chocolate at home, and I would share some deep meaningful words about how I was feeling about stuff. I mean, I did, even with when the rendezvous chocolat chauds weren't happening because of whatever, we were all locked down or whatever. I did still carry on sharing parts of my story in the recovery, because again, I found it was really important, and also because I was still doing my job, and I was very conflicted for a while about doing my job, actually, because I was like, my job is really not helping me. But it's not as simple as just not doing my job, because that's my job. So I wanted to, as well as, share stuff to do with my job and lead all the online Zoom fitness and Insta lives and everything that I was doing, also be like, well, in the background, there's also this other side that's going on that I'm also working on. And again, this just comes down to me just wanting to be completely transparent about what was going on for me, and not having people think that just because I could lead a very like energetic class and everything, that meant that everything was fine. And the thing was as well is that once my period came back the first time, I mean, I had a bit of body dysmorphia going on, so I can't really, like, me looking in the mirror, I can't really tell you what I actually look like. But I know that I was an acceptable weight for people to no longer worry about me. And that was the case, I believe, throughout the whole time when I was in New Zealand as well. No one really said, I mean, I know people are kind of nervous about commenting on someone's weight, but people, everyone said, oh, you look really good. You look really well. And I know that they mean this in the nicest way, but I had to stop people sometimes and be like, I know I might look really well, but actually there are still quite a lot of problems, and a lot of them are in my head. And this is the thing, which is especially relevant, I think, for HA, is that if you don't fit that, typical super skinny stereotype, people think you must be fine, and you, how can you kind of still have those problems because you look fine?
Yep. We all go through that. I'm sure everyone's also nodding their head to that. It's so tough to find a community and have everyone understand. And I think it's great that your mother actually was on the side of understanding. I think a lot of people don't have their parents understanding, which is one of the most challenging things. And it just comes up for me how wonderful it is that she was in your corner for that. And I love your hot chocolate club. I think that's fantastic. I'm so jealous of the whole idea. I think it's just the best. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story with everyone today. And I feel like people are going to want to maybe connect with you. They're going to have resonated with so much of your story. And where can people, like, what do you do, and where could people maybe find you?
I'm most present, active, whatever you like to say, on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is just my name, which is Ally, spelled Ally, and then McDonald bull, McDonald like McDonald's, bull like the animal. And if you are in Paris, then you can come and hang out with me at the Rendezvous Chocolat Show, or come to one of my Pilates or bar classes.
Thank you, Ali. I will link to your account as well in the show notes so people can go and watch your hot chocolate thoughts on there. In the meantime, I hope someone from Paris totally finds you through this. That would make my day. And yeah, thank you. That was so good. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much, because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women.
Hey, I'm Katie Grossman, a trail and ultramarathon runner sponsored by New Balance. I'm also a creative professional, wife to my life and running partner, Dominic, and a very proud mom of 2 girls. Life has gotten a little crazy, especially after battling postpartum injury and an abdominal tumor. But running is still a huge part of my identity, and it legitimately improves my mental health. I'm working my way back to racing, but for now, I'm still finding peace on the trail. Go be on the run at newbalance.com.
Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the resculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.